Hi, I'm going to be making the Dahlia Dungaree dress pattern over the next few days, so I thought I'd go through some of the processes with you to show you just how easy it is to bring this pattern together. Now, if you've been following me, you'll see that this pattern is available in 4 ways, which is totally amazing for a pattern. And what's more interesting is that you can make it with either the trouser bottom or with the skirt bottom. So it's a set of dungarees as a traditional dungaree dress or a dungaree, and it is the dungarees that I'm wearing today. So this is it, and here's the back, so you can see that. And the bit that I'm going to be doing today with you is starting out doing all the pleats on the fronts and the backs of the skirts. I'm getting in the pockets onto the skirts and working on putting all this strap detail together and showing you just how easy that is. So I will be stopping and starting the recording. I've cut all my pieces out ready. Now you can choose a contrast lining, as is on here. So when you cut the strap pieces out, you can do 2 in your outer fabric and a lining fabric of your choice. If you do want to choose a lining, you just really need a couple of fat quarters, to be honest. But I reached into my stash. I've got some old Gutterman fabric there, which is quite pretty, and I'm just going to be using that, but more on the facings of the bib. And for the strap detail, I'm going to keep it simple because I want this to look quite traditional denim dress. So I've cut all my pieces out and I've got these 2 pieces here. It's just I think it was a 2-inch strip piece. I've just cut a couple of lengths and fold it in on itself to make a piece of binding, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to top stitch all the way around, and then they will be set aside and cut into 3 equal pieces. I'm going to get my 4th from here, and that's going to become these loop details that are going to go on the back at a later time. So I'm going to do those first. So I'm going to go in, I've got my stitch length set up onto a 3. No, I'm not going to do that just now, because the reason why, I have got white thread in the top and the bottom, but actually for all the top stitch detail, I wanted to put this colour in, which I think will look really pretty against that, which means I've got to change all the threads and get a bobbin ready. So maybe I'm going to do that afterwards. So I'm just going to pop these to one side, and let's forget we talked about that. I've got all the straps here. So this is a belt piece that I need to do, 2 pieces face to face, and all I'm going to do is run a row of stitches all the way up, across the top and down again. The reason why I'm going across the top is so that I can use my prim tool turners to turn the whole thing through. It'll get pressed out nicely, and then I'll do the top stitching when I've got that thread on again. So I'm going to go do that straight away. So just a regular stitch length. I'm using a 1 centimetre seam allowance, which for me is using the edge of the foot against the edge of my fabric. I'm going to go down into the needle down position and start sewing. I am going to reverse at the start and the stop to reinforce those edges. I am aware that when I record, it does show the machine back to front. I apologise for that if it is a bit confusing. So I've only got a few pins in because I can just wiggle that as I go. If you want to give a little bit more structure, then you can use some light to medium weight interfacing. But I'm not going to bother. I do see that for me this dress is going to be a little bit more summer weight, so I don't mind it being a little bit sort of softer, a bit more fluid. So I've just got into my needle down position so I can lift the foot, rotate it around. Edge of the foot is against the edge of the fabric again. I'm going to work my way along until I'm 1 centimetre from the edge. When I'm there, again, I'm just going to lift my foot because I've got my needle down and come back the other way. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that on the other piece as well. And I've also got 2 pieces that are the straps. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing, and I'll come back to you when I turn them through. So I finished sewing all of those 4 pieces. I chained them together where I could, and I'm just going to go up to the corners where I've got that sealed edge, and I'm just going to cut off those corners. So cutting quite close to the stitches, but not through. And then what I should be able to do is take my prim turner, pop it inside. I haven't tried this yet, so I'm hoping it's all going to work okay. Now, if you haven't got one of these tools, don't worry. You can always use the safety pin method or a chopstick or something like that. But I find these quite useful. So there we go, there's a sealed edge. And then I can just push that through. Oh, need to turn my iron on. Get that done. Sorry about the noise if you can hear it. That is the sound of my husband working there. And then look, I just push those corners out and they should be nice and tight. Now I am just going to also grab a pin just to make sure that I've really pulled those through. And then all I need to do is iron it. So I've got really nice sharp edges. So that's that done. And now I'm just going to grab my iron and work that through to make it, whoa! Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? Try that again. And we'll just iron that down nice and flat, and I'll just work my way down. Then all I have to do is repeat this process with those other 4 pieces, and then I shall be top stitching. But before I top stitch, I want to make the most of that white thread being in there and start on the pockets, because they will also need top stitching the way that I plan to make it. So yeah, so you get the idea. We're just ironing that nice and flat, rolling those seams out as we go. So they're nice and tidy. So I've come back to the skirt now, and I've come to the back panel. Now this was a really lovely piece because it's just on the fold, and on either side from the halfway point there's just some very basic pleats that just need to be tacked into place. So there's lovely 3 markings, dead easy just to line them up, fold it over, and all I'm going to do is take it under the machine, and within the 1 centimetre seam allowance I'm just going to sew straight across those. I'm not going to reverse or anything like that. Just do a few stitches just to hold it while we're constructing the rest of the dress. It's got these same markings on the front panel, so I'm just going to sew those in. Let me take those pins out. That's all held and nice and secure, so I can pop that to one side for later on. Now I am jumping around the pattern. You wouldn't maybe necessarily do it this way, but I'm just trying to sew efficiently, and because I'm fairly confident in my pattern construction, I'm able to just jump around and sort of know what's got to be done before I really get there. So on the front I've got these again, so I'm just going to sew them in. And then we're on to the front pocket, which I've also pinned in. I pinned everything at the same time. Best view of the machine that I can, but it's not always possible. I am but an amateur. So they're all held in. And then what I've done is I've pinned in, we've got these pockets at the front. So this is the front panel and it's got the arch. Taken one of the pocket bags and I've just pinned it in, and I'm just going to sew 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way around. I will do a little reverse at the start and the end. Take the pins out as I go. So that's in, and now I'm going to take you to the next step. So I've laid the pocket out for you. This is the line that I've just sewn. I'm going to take away my threads. And what I'm going to do now is just create some notches in this curve area just here, just by sewing, cutting in some little triangles. Now you might think I'm doing this an odd way, but I tend to do it like this. Do one angle first, whip along, and then go to the next angle, rather than doing it this way. To me that feels like too much work. So when that's done, we then want to iron the pocket bag away from the dress. So let me grab the iron, and I'm going to start pressing it away. Lovely. So you saw me eyeing the pocket bag away. This is what we've now got. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do some understitching, which means that the pocket bag is now going to be sewn down on this side of the pocket, so that we are actually sewing the pocket to these notches. So on the underside, you'll have these ironed over that way and it'll just catch everything in. So let me show you that. Still got on a regular stitch and I've not changed my thread at this point. I'm probably working at no more than 2mm away from that seam line, and I won't be reversing at both ends. So just work your way along, sewing in those little snip marks that we've done, the seam allowance. Okay, so that's what it now looks like. I'll take you over to the other side. What you then do is just press that pocket back inside of the skirt. So there's nothing to be seen from the outside, and on the inside we've got that little row of stitching. Now what you can do if you wish to do so is change your thread, which I'm going to do to the top stitch, and I am going to just sew a row across there to make it just stand out and pop a little bit. So I'm ready to top stitch now, so I just need to turn my stitch length up to 3.5 if you want to do that. And I am going to take my first pocket and I'm going to sew quite close to the edge here. So if I line up the side of my foot against the edge of the fabric, I'm actually going to move my needle now as the furthest right position that I can. And that will probably give me about 0.5 centimetre away from the edge. And I'm just going to work my way up that curve. And now it's sewing all layers together. And hopefully giving it some nice detail. So let's have a look at that pocket. Yeah, that's lovely. Really nice. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And then the pockets are actually nearly done, because all we then need to do is attach the other part of the pocket to it. So it does come together quite quickly there, so there's nothing hard about this at all. Very much rectangles really that you're just putting together in a bit of a sequence. Nothing to be scared of, and loads of help online. Coming back to these straps now, so let's start on these. So I'm going to start at the raw edge up here. Again, I'm going to line up the side of that foot against the edge of my fabric, and I'm just going to whip along there, keeping it as straight as I can as I go. So I'm using my left hand to keep it straight, and my right hand is just keeping it nice and flat to the bed and making sure it doesn't wobble at the last minute. As I approach, I'm slowing down the speed and stop. Rotate and across, and let's go back down again on the other side. Not quite lined up straight, but I'll soon come back on track. So now we just need to repeat this process with the other 3 long straps to complete the neck ties and the ties on our back. So I will do those in a moment. But I am just going to finish off by doing the little crossover pieces, the belt loops that we're going to need. So there we go. We just need to do the other pieces. So yeah, coming back to these ones here, a little bit more fiddly. Slow down just a little for this. And we're going to work our way down in exactly the same way. Taking the pins out as we go. Don't worry if you get a little bit wobbly with this. By the time it's cut up into 3 pieces, it won't really be that noticeable, to be honest. I think, as I recall, it does need to be cut into 8 centimetre pieces. And you can, of course, cut them into length before you sew them, but I find it easier to do long pieces that then just get cut down. That's one done, and then I shall just repeat it on the other piece as well. So the very last thing that I want to show you in this section of the sewing is on this front skirt piece. It's now laid with the right side facing up, and I've now got my two skirt pockets. Okay, all we now need to do is lay them so the right side is also facing upwards, so everything becomes right side to right side with the pocket bag. So I'm just going to slide that down and under, lay the pocket on top, and it should all just line up perfectly. Now, just for ease, I am going to tip it over, so I'm actually now looking at the wrong side. Let me just snip that down just a little bit. So now I've got all these raw edges matched up and lined here. So all I'm going to do is pin this long curved edge and sew that through. I will then overlock the edge to get that as a nice finish. And when that's done, I'm just going to tack the side down there and across the top. So meet me when that is done. So in terms of a roundup, we have completed lots and lots and lots and lots of straps. Lots of straps. And lots of little belt loops, all with beautiful top stitching on. We have completed our back panel of the skirt with the little pleats, the simple pleats. And finally, we have completed all of the front of the skirt. There we go. So we have pleats and we have pockets that are all sewn in, and the inside looking nice and tidy. It's all been overlocked and finished, and we've done some lovely understitching on our pockets, and it's all looking fab. So now we just got to start working on all of the top and putting it together. So I hope you come along and watch the next episode with me of how to make the Dahlia. See you soon.